Welcome to Ordinary People Doing Extraordinary Things, the podcast show. I'm your host, Carrie Roberts, and I have with me yet another extraordinary person, Mr. Robert Lucas. Here, he's calling in from Georgia. Thank you so much for being here, Robert.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
So, I want to get right into it because I found you on TikTok. You make these fabulous cakes, and the first one I saw was actually the strawberry one. And you had put this like piece of plastic around and put chocolate in it, and then you moved the plastic, and all this chocolate came down, so it was like a chocolate covered strawberry. And I was like,
Yeah.
what a really cool idea! I'd never seen that before. And I was like, this guy is like so creative. And I started following you and watching your stuff, and I reached out and I was like, I want to hear more. So I would love to hear. I know you started this a couple years ago, but where did your interest in baking and creating come from originally?
So I've always kind of had like I would say, I think I've always had a creative mind. So I always tried to like do artistic things. As a child, I was like obsessed with origami. I don't know
That's really cool.
why. So I would like do origami all the time. And just I started baking like a year and a half ago. So it was like in 2019 is when I actually made my very first cake. I baked the very first thing I ever baked before. So it's still pretty new to me. I was honestly, I was bored one day. I saw a picture of a cake, and I said to myself, "I bet I can do that." And and I challenged myself, and I did it. And then from there, I just kept going.
Whoa, wait. But like, so when you say you were like creative as a kid, did you paint? Did you draw? Did you sing? Like, were you doing
Yeah.
other things that you had some sort of creativity and some sort of skill that made you feel confident to say, I could probably do what I'm
Um,
seeing here?
yeah, I would say so. I come from a pretty creative family, and a singing family because I sing as well. And then I have
Nice.
sisters that draw. I have a sister that actually has a degree in graphic design. So it kind of come from like an artistic kind of family, but like the baking side, like no. So that's just I don't know. That was just something new to do.
Did you start doing it because of COVID? Were you like, all right, I'm home. Let me just try this new hobby. This looks interesting.
So I started doing, actually started making cakes, like just playing around doing it, like right before COVID happened, like literally like right before it happened. So then as it happened and things slowed down and everything started closing, I just had time to like play around with it even more. So that kind of actually made me stick with it than me just doing something that was like a one-off time thing. So
Yeah.
it kind of, worked out that way. But
But you by day are an IT professional,
right,
correct?
right, right. I have an IT 9 to 5. So after I'm done with work, I come home and I bake in my free time. So
Do you know it's so funny because we are meeting for the first time today. So I'm a dancer and I used to own a dance studio. And when I did, I had a lot of adults, and most of my adults were in the IT field, and they would do this very technical thing during the day. And then at night, they were super creative. Do you find that that's pretty common that you have people that are very technical have this highly creative side as well?
maybe so. I think because like you're in the IT world, which everything is 1 and 0, it's a yes or no thing where
Mhm.
there really is no room to be creative. You kind of want to do something outside of that where you can, do creative things and work that creative muscle because IT world is yes or no. It's right or wrong. It's going to work or it's not. So you can't really be creative there. But um, that may be the reason.
So when you do these cakes, are these something that you look at something and you just kind of say, okay, let me just see how I can do it? Are you following a video? Are you creating these ideas? Can you take us a little bit through your process on how this works?
Yeah. So like I said in the beginning, I would see cakes and I just want to recreate them. Um, Actually, the very first cake I did was like a 2-tier cake covered in fondant and with buttercream and stuff. And it was like that's not the kind of cake you would make for your first time. So like I had already pushed myself from the very beginning to do something that I probably shouldn't have done, but it worked out great. But from there, like I've slowly gone from getting more comfortable into what I was doing, from following a picture. I would never follow someone make a cake. I would just always look at a picture and recreate it. Now I'm just whatever pops in my head I feel is creative. Well, like the strawberry cake, that was a trend a tsunami cake, or you would pull the acetate sheet up and it would fall. And I wanted to put my own spin on that and do it a little different, which is how I came up with that. So,
So hold up. So you just were like, you just saw a picture of a cake and you were like,
uh, that's
but how
exactly
do,
what I did.
but wait, but how do you know the baking piece and how did you like,
I had
how
to
did that work?
look. I researched. I look. I ever since the very beginning, because I said if I did it, I want to make everything. So I made the cake from scratch. I made the frosting from scratch, and I even made my own fondant from scratch. And because I want to be proud of me doing it as well, saying like, "Oh, I made this." You know, it wasn't like I brought something to put together. So yeah, I just saw that picture and I was like, I'm going to do that.
You know, when you're seeing people on social media, we always see the end product, and your TikTok and Instagram. You started
Mhm,
kind of doing where you're doing some of your cooking or baking rather, but you usually do to the end. I didn't realize that you were doing everything from scratch
mhm,
and the creative. I
everything.
mean, that's extremely impressive. Like,
Yeah.
so the other thing I was thinking, you're making these beautiful cakes, this is art that doesn't last forever unless you take a video or a picture. Is this something where you give it to people? Do you eat it? Do you sell it? What do you do with it once it's completed?
So once I finish, I actually just give them away. I don't want to. I don't want to waste them. So I give them away. I will take them to work and give them to my coworkers, let them eat them. Give them to family members or friends. But I always just I don't want to waste the cake, so I always just give them away. Like y'all can do whatever you want with them. And I just like to make them. I just have fun creating them. And people enjoy, seeing the process of how it's done. I have a lot of people saying that, they learn things from the videos that I make. So I love doing that.
Now, is this something that you feel is like, I just like making them, it's a creative outlet, it's fun, or do you see yourself like, I want to own a bakery, I want
Mhm.
to get paid for this, or even beyond, which we're going to get into the social media aspect, but do you see it in that way? Like, are you like, someday I just want to be baking my whole life,
Yeah.
or no, not really?
At first I was thinking like, maybe I do want to open a bakery and do make cakes. But now that I'm to the point where I'm just being creative and I just get to have fun doing it and just coming up with things, I just enjoy the whole social media aspect of it now, where you can actually make a profit from just having fun. Um, and so I'd rather more so teach and show people how to do things now than more so me having a bakery. So that's
Mm.
just my thought.
I think people will always talk about how creativity, kids are very creative. And as we get older, we tend to kind of lose that creative piece unless we really work on it or kind of come up with ideas. And there's a lot of adults, I think, feel like they've lost the creativity in their life. They don't know how to get it back. They'd love to do something like what you're doing, but they're like, I don't have ideas. I don't know how to do this. Where did your kind of innate feeling of creativity come from? And do you have any advice for people that are trying to find some sort of creativity in their life?
So my initial creativity for the cakes are just for the ideas I come up with. Which
Mhm.
one?
Both, yeah, both.
All
Like
right.
whether it's yeah, your initial ideas.
Mhm.
When you're because one of the hardest thing is creating something new, right?
Right,
Okay,
right.
what's the next thing that I'm going to be creating and posting about? I
Mhm,
think that's one of the
mhm.
hard pieces people don't talk about. So I'm curious where that comes from for you. And then do you have any advice for those that are trying to find their own sense of creativity if they haven't found it in a while or they feel stuck as an artist?
Mhm. For me, my creativity comes right now since I'm just so new to this baking world. I have so many designs in my head that I'm like, I want to create, and I just haven't even gotten to it yet. So my mind's just full of ideas right now. And whenever I think of something, like right now, I want to make a s'mores cake, but I'm trying to think of how I'm going to design it. So right now, I'm actually stuck trying to figure out. I have the idea, I have the flavors of how I want to make it. That's all going to be involved. It's just like now, design wise, how am I going to make this? So I'm actually kind of stuck myself with that. But I always tell people because they always say I want to make cakes like you or anything like that. I always say just have fun with it because a lot of people get stuck on saying, "Oh, I just made my first cake and it didn't look like your first cake," or "I didn't." when I made my first cake, I was just having fun. I was bored. I was just wanting to have fun. I always say that because once you make it a task or a job that I need to do a good job on this, you kind of lose your way. It's not as fun. You put too much on yourself and you kind of lose the creativity behind what you're actually doing. So I always just say let loose and have fun.
I think that's good advice. And I also think that's very hard for people. I know I've been to, some of those businesses where like you can paint, they do the paint and wine.
Yeah.
I've done cooking ones, and I did one time where it was like jewelry making, and it was like metal. It was very intense. And there was maybe 10 ladies in the class, and there was 2 ladies that lost it. They were like, oh my God, I came here to relax. I'm stressed out. They're crying. They're getting anxious about this class. And the poor lady who's running it is like, oh my gosh, like just breathe. It's supposed to be fun. I think another issue a lot of people have, adults, I don't know if this is a US thing or not, but we sometimes don't know how to have fun. We always feel like there has to be some sort of achievement or something assigned to it. How do you allow yourself to say this, it doesn't matter what this looks like. It doesn't matter what anyone else thinks. I'm just going to enjoy it for me because it's important. How do you do that?
For me, the only way I do it right now, especially, is because I look at this as a hobby. And it's okay to not be great in your hobby. You can become better at it. It's like I said, I have a regular 9 to 5 work in the IT industry. So that right there is where I would feel like I need to do things right. I need to do things this way. Whereas for cakes right now, hobbies, it's just a creative outlet. It's if I mess up, it's okay. Uh, all the time in my videos, I'm laughing at myself when I mess up because it's just like, okay, that was supposed to happen, but let's fix it. So that's what it is. I just don't put too much on myself for something that is supposed to be fun.
Is that something, have you always been that way? Or is that something you think like your family helped you cultivate? Or is that something you've learned as you've gotten older?
I think it's a family thing as well. I have 3 older sisters. I'm the only boy. So like I think that definitely molded me too to just just laugh it off because they're going to say something anyway. So I think it's just growing up that way.
Oh, I love that. So the other piece that's, what's interesting for you is like you said, you kind of started this hobby about a year and a half ago or so, but you just hit 1 million followers on TikTok, and your Instagram is growing. And, when you see that number and you see the comments, does that bring any emotions to you, or any new thoughts or any pressures at all?
No, it's exciting because it's just exciting that people are enjoying what I enjoy. Like this is the best way I could put it. I just like I said at first I was just making the cakes and I took pictures of them and I decided to because I'm not a very social person. So like social media, I never was big on that. Like personally, just putting myself out there. But this is just a craft or something that I did, so I at least wanted to share that. Did I expect that number? No, I did not. Is it pressuring? The only pressure for it now is that since there's so many people following me and they're following me because of the cakes and what I do, the only pressure is making sure that my next cake is just as good or better because I don't want what I do to not be as good. It's like, well, that's not what I followed you for, or I expected more from you. That's the only pressuring part. But I have so many ideas right now that I don't see that really happening for me, as in like what I'm producing to go down in quality. Because like I said, I'm still just trying to have fun with it. But that is kind of pressuring, just meeting everyone's expectations.
It's interesting you say that because I follow you not because of that at all. I think there is a joy about you. I mean, as I'm talking to you now, and as I'm watching it, that especially during, a lot of us still quarantined in some capacity, and we're getting over that hump, but there is a lot of pressures and a lot of stress for people. And to watch your videos and like to see you happy and excited and joyful, like you can feel that. And you don't really talk that much in your
Yeah,
videos
no.
at all. Yeah, which is funny. So it's like you just feel it. There's just this positive energy, and it's also creativity. So it's like, I think what's interesting about the TikTok platform is that it's allowed so many people to just be themselves. Like I even think if
Yeah.
you showed you messing up a cake, I think people would be like, oh, okay, I feel better now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they might feel like, oh, okay, he's not perfect. Like there are times that he's figuring it out. But it's interesting, you know, how we kind of perceive ourselves and what we think expectations are when for me, and I'm just scrolling through and I'm just looking for, you know, light entertainment, you know, you don't want the heavy stuff. It's like yours is
Yeah.
just so full of joy. And that for me, I would assume a lot of people feel that as well, unless they're, you know, super into cakes and that's their thing, you know?
Yeah. No, that I mean that's great, and I've gotten that before too. That they're not even for cakes. It's just like to see you smiling and just having fun with it. So, and that's great as well. Like I said, and that's why I want to make sure I keep having fun. Like it's just
Yes.
I never want to just look like I'm focused too hard because I'm trying not to mess up. And when I do mess up, I do make sure I leave those parts in. And I even make my blooper reels where I just combine them all and show people like this is what's happening that that y'all may not see. So it's fun for me.
What happens when you're doing a cake? Because I'm thinking of, I mean, I haven't seen it on your videos really, but if like I watch like Cake Wars or any of those shows and somebody makes these elaborate cakes and then it falls over, you mess
Mhm.
something up, like I would imagine like that has to be frustrating, but then you have to be creative. Have you had that happen? And how do you
Yep.
kind of, you know, yeah, you're like, yep. How do you adjust that so that it, you know, comes back to some sort of vision that you had for
Yeah.
the cake?
So I was making a SpongeBob cake. This was actually like 2 months ago. Making a SpongeBob cake, and the idea was that he was actually going to be sitting up. So it's like a tall cake, but it was skinny at the same time. So that was already kind of risky. Um, and I was recording it because I was going to do a video of it as I was doing it. Because I was actually making this cake for a family member's birthday. So I was like, well, I'll record it and while I do it for them. And it fell over as I was recording. Um, so I had to change what I was doing. It was still SpongeBob, but instead of sitting up, he was laying down. And it still came out great. It still came out great. He just wasn't sitting up this time. So I'm planning on redoing it, but it just happened yet.
Just yeah, make it, you know, you have to adjust. I think in
Yeah,
creativity, you know, that does happen and you're like, okay, well, that's life and you just
yeah,
find another way to do it, which I think is
yeah.
great. You know, I think one of the other things that's really wonderful is like, you know, stereotypically people will say, "Oh, women are the ones who bake,"
Mm.
which is garbage, right? Like anyone can bake. Do
Right.
you have any advice for men that are like, wow, I'd love to do something like, because you're doing like princess cakes, I mean, you're doing a variety of things.
Yeah.
Men that want to do this, but maybe they feel uncomfortable, feel like they might be judged. Do you have any thoughts about that or any insight for them?
Um, I guess I can just say personally for me, um, yeah, everyone can bake, but for me, I want to say when I did begin, I when I very first started posting cakes, I didn't show my face. No one knew I was a male. I just posted the cakes, and it just got to the point where I didn't care. It was fun. So it was like I don't. If someone judges me for it or it's judgmental, it doesn't matter. I just like to have fun with it. So the only advice I can give is there's no judgment when it comes to creativity. Just have fun. It's art. Everyone can do art. 'Cause like I said, at first I didn't tell anyone. Like besides my family, I never even told my friends that in my spare time I was making cake. They didn't know what I was doing. But now, like once I started posting it and the followers and the attention I got from it, now I don't mind. I was like, oh
You're like,
well,
now there's proof. Yeah.
like, yeah, no, like I'll tell anyone now, bake, like you can do it. So.
Were your friends surprised? Like, were they like, oh my God, how did you not, like, how did we not know? We had no idea you had this skill.
Yeah, my family was surprised because I've
Really?
never baked a thing in my life. So
They were like, you were holding out on us. You could have been making us food for how
I
many
never,
years?
I never baked. Well, I'll tell you the full story of how I started. So I did see the picture of the cake, and my niece's birthday was like in the next 2 weeks.
Hmm.
So as I was scrolling through, I saw a picture of the cake. It was a unicorn cake. And I was like, I bet I can make that. But I was like, well, why would I make that? I was like, why would I make it? So I called my sister and I was like, does she have a theme for her birthday party? And she was like unicorns. And I was like, well, that worked out. And I said, well,
It's a sign.
do you mind if I make her cake? Now I'm thinking she's gonna say no because I've never baked before. But she was like, yeah, sure. I was like, well, it's all lined up for me to make a cake, so I made it. So they were surprised, and honestly, if my sister said no, I probably wouldn't have made cakes. So
So the big question is, because kids are truthful. So when your niece saw that cake, was she like, "Oh my gosh, so
yeah,
impressed"?
they loved it. She was so excited. So excited.
I love it. Like I said, just your creations are so beautiful, and it's interesting because like I said, the one with the strawberry I was talking about, there was movement to it. So I just thought it was kind
Yeah.
of different because I was like, oh, this is like a live cake. Like things are coming out of it. Again, as this kind of social following, increases, besides it being a hobby, do you think of yourself as like, okay, this could turn into brand deals. This could turn into, having your own show. Like, do you think about that at all?
No, because at first, like I said, I was just posting what I was having fun doing. But those opportunities have now come, and I'm definitely not mad about that. I've got to work with DreamWorks. I never thought I'd work with such a big, production company like that. But
That's awesome.
I made the cake for their television show, so it was fun, and opportunities are coming. Never would have expected it, but yeah, I'm definitely grateful for it.
I mean, I'm so proud of you. I'm sure so many people are. I mean, it's so impressive. I think, this show is about ordinary to extraordinary. It's about just everyday people kind of taking that leap to try something, and you never know if it's gonna work out how you'd like or even expect. It could be better. Do you, again, any kind of like final words of advice for anyone that's like, "Oh, I'd love to do something like that, but I'm scared," or
Mhm.
what if it doesn't work, or I don't have time? Like anything that you would share as far as advice on that?
Yeah, my advice is just to always just give it a try and have fun when you do it. Like I used to have busy days, but in my spare time, when I do have time, I like to try different things, and I found something that I ended up being pretty good at. So I say just have fun with what you do. Don't Your spare time should not be a stressful time. So make that free
Yes.
time fun. Make that free time a happy time for yourself. That's the advice I have.
So smart. I love it. It's so good. Where can people learn more about you, follow you on social media so they can see all the beautiful cakes that you do if they haven't already?
Yeah. So my social media, all social media platforms, which is YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook, they're all the Sweet Impact. That's the handle for each of those.
The Sweet Impact. Yes, definitely check it out. I would highly recommend. The last question I like to ask all of my guests, Robert, is what is one word or quote or mantra that you try to live by every single day?
Hmm. I don't know. I was thinking about that.
What's I always stump people with this. What is the first thing that comes to mind?
First thing that always comes to mind for me is don't put don't put more on yourself than you can bear. That's the other thing I always say.
What does that mean to you?
To me, it just means you need to have a little control of what you're doing, and you need to know when to say no and when to say yes. Saying yes to everything can be may be too much of a burden for you, where you could give 100% to one thing, but now you're giving 20% to 10 things. So try to pace yourself with what you're doing in life.
Robert, I am so glad I met you. You are a fabulous young man. I want to just share too. Queenie, she is a friend of mine. She said, love it. You are doing tremendous things. I thank you so much for being here. I am so excited to see how you grow, how this grows, and again, the thing I love most is just the joy that you bring. So I hope that you continue to do that in every capacity of the things that you do. So thank you so much, Robert. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.